Hello, Troy here, and welcome back to Beaters, Drivers, and Survivors. And we still haven't gotten the 61 Buick Skylark on the road yet. It has been a pretty rough start to winter in Pennsylvania and much of the East Coast and even the central U.S. So we've had several snowstorms and no thaw between those storms. So it's been primarily snow removal around here and salt and all that fun stuff, and it is still a mess outside. Now fortunately, over the last couple days we did have some thawing, but it's still total garbage in my driveway and actually the streets around here. So it's been so darn cold that I haven't been able to get out here in the barn as much as I wanted to, so progress has been very, very limited until today. We're actually going to get underneath the car and install these U-bolts. And the propane heater's running, so you'll hear that in the background, but it is a bit warmer in here, and I know, first world problems. Extremely fortunate just to have a garage to work in, even though most of my stuff is outside. But anyway, let's get started. So we don't need to go nuts. I just want to get it off of those ramps just enough. Now, I really like to use these flat bottom heavy. They are really heavy jack stands, but the reason I like to use them is because they're a lot sturdier than your standard jack stand. And I really like how secure the pin mounts are on this type of stand. And we'll just make the jack just touch it. And then I'll check to make sure that everything looks good yet. Looks like we're under here. Now I'm going to go to the front of the car and just make sure it did not move on the ramps. Now with the rear of the car on jack stands and the front still on the ramps, but we know that it's securely placed on the ramps, we now will take the car out of park so that we can actually grab that drive shaft and rotate it. Safety glasses on. So you might be asking yourself, why the heck aren't you just replacing all the U-joints and dropping the drive shaft? Well, you know what? I might have to, but for the time being, I am simply trying to get this car to go around the block to see if this transmission shifts properly. That is the main focus right now. We know that the car starts. It has oil pressure. Also, here's the part that broke. Okay, so we know the car starts. It has oil pressure. Does that mean it's perfect? I don't know. We need to see if this thing will actually be able to shift. And if it does not shift, then I have to make a plan. All right. Oh, those are nice. Perfect. If anybody else out there is working on one of these little cars, then I will give you that part number here at the end of this video, just in case you run into the same thing as I do and you need to get these little U-bolts. Just lightly tighten this one up.
rotate the drive shaft. Now I pulled out that other side to take it to the auto parts store to try to get one matched up. So that makes that side easy. This thing has like the tiniest drive shafts ever. But you know what? My Falcon had a small drive shaft on it too, but what I don't like is the sender carrier bearing in these. They did it to keep the floor flat, but I like one single drive shaft to worry about and not a bearing in the middle. So that's the other reason why I'm not doing U-joints on this right now. Because if this transmission is not working, then I don't think I'm going to get this rebuilt. I'm going to think about an alternative. The problem is the tunnels are very shallow on these cars. The Cutlass F85 and the Buick Special and the Skylark. Very, very shallow transmission tunnels on these to give them the most legroom in the car as you possibly could. That was a thing that was very important in the early 60s. Also, the reason you got your two-piece drive shaft is for that purpose as well. It allowed for a very small drive shaft tunnel in the car. And if you do put a turbo 350 or another type of automatic in here, you generally have to make a modification to the tunnel. Okay, front's all tightened up. While we're under here, we might as well go to the back and just make sure that those are tight. Back U-joint here was in good shape as far as being tight. Again, we're not pulling these out right now. I just want to get it good enough to take down the street, go around the block, just to make sure that that transmission is shifting correctly. Hey, while we're under here, I did want to point this out. I know I've mentioned it before, maybe a couple of times. Lower control arm. Up here's an upper control arm. Triangulated. So, to my knowledge, this is the first of the triangulated control arm configurations. Now, that later on became the norm for the GM A-body. The 64 on up, the A-bodies and G-bodies and the Fox body, Mustang, all have a similar configuration with triangulated upper and lower control arms. When compared to the full-size Chevy that uses a slightly triangulated lower control arm, straight upper control arms, but then you have to incorporate a panhard bar in order to keep your rear axle located. When this is a pretty innovative design for 1961. So one of the cool features again to the Buick Skylark, Buick Special, Oldsmobile F85, and the Oldsmobile Cutlass. Remember, the Pontiac Tempest, that was a different configuration because that actually had a transaxle in the back. So, different suspension configuration completely. As you can see, the car is back down on the ground, and boy does it feel good. When it goes from being up in the air and not movable for weeks or months, or in some cases years, when you get the thing back on the ground, it just feels like you made some progress. So that's why today I just wanted to get it back on its 4 tires resting on the ground. So here's the part we've replaced. If anybody is working on one of these or a similar car, so F85,
Cutlass, Skylark, or the Buick Special, UJ329-10 is the part number for the U-bolt, and it fit perfectly. So it's an SKF branded part. So what's next? I would love to promise and say, hey, the next video is going to be this thing attempting to make its way around the block, or at least pulling out the garage. But the snow still has to melt. I don't have snow tires on this, or believe me, I would do it. I've driven old cars in the snow for decades. The Chevelle used to be the only car that I drove, and that had snow tires on it. So I'm not afraid to drive anything in the snow, and I'm not worried about getting snow and salt under it. I'd wash it off. But I am very concerned I'm going to get stuck. And there is another problem. Outside the barn here, I have a very large car that's currently blocking the driveway and the ability to get this car out. And that is my wife's 69 Impala. So you're probably thinking, why can't I just move that? Unfortunately, or maybe it is fortunately, I don't know, it has drag radials on it. I tried to move it in the snow. It doesn't go anywhere, even with it being that heavy of a car. So I'm kind of in a predicament at the moment. I need to have it thaw enough that I can scrape that snow off the driveway, move the Impala, and get this thing out. So here's the plan. I need to put the rear bumper on this thing, headlight bezels, little odds and ends like that, in order to actually make this thing a driver. But that's not a necessity to get it on the road. So maybe next week what I'll end up doing is showing a video on my 69 Buick GS400 or maybe the Impala, because both of those projects I got in the same year and I really didn't do a proper introduction to those on the channel. So maybe I'll do that. I'll actually introduce those cars and show you how I came about acquiring both of those. But if the weather stays clear and I can get things moved around and cleaned up, we're going to try to get this thing out on the road. So thank you everybody for watching. Hey, as always, I love the questions and the comments about this car, because if you're working on one, I'd love to hear about it, and I would love to share any of the knowledge that I've gained from owning this thing for as long as I have. So feel free to comment, ask me any questions. I always do my best to get back to you with answers. If there's something on the car that you need to see because you're working on one, leave a comment. I will get back to you as quickly as possible with the information that hopefully you need to either get yours on the road or maybe restore yours if you're going to that extent. Because this car is essentially an untouched car for the most part. It has not crazy miles on it. I think it has 60, let's see here. Yeah, 67,000 miles on it. So feel free to ask me any questions. I'll do my best to answer them for you. So thank you everybody for watching, and see you next week.